Good morning. My name is Francesco Dotto. I am a member of the Grassmed Italian Institute, and I would like to talk about this new professional profile, the groundsman or the groundsperson. Who is this? He or she is a gardener who is specialized in sports green. Of course, the urban and the urban green cannot be neglected because this person should be aware also of it. But this mm, groundsman tends to focus on sports grounds, but of course, it could be, as I said, landscapes or other things. And groundsmen um, were born in many decades ago in the Anglo-Saxon world. In Italy, this figure is not very well known. It is almost unknown. In other European countries, actually, they came before us. They were pioneers. And now we've got ground persons that are becoming increasingly popular, common in Spain, in France, in Slovakia, in the Czech Republic, apart from Anglo-Saxon countries, as I said earlier. Our institute is trying to promote this professional profile, and we teach, we train students and all those who want to specialize in sports ground. We teach them whatever they need to modify a sports ground, a pitch or a field, so that it can allow for safety and best possible playing conditions in all circumstances, from a church football field, as it were, to a Premier League football pitch. And safety is important in all from all points of view for children, because, for example, if a child, when he plays and gets hurt, well, obviously that fracture might have repercussions for the rest of his life. For adults, this is not so serious, but nevertheless, for professional athletes, things change. If we consider Ronaldo, for example, that would be a huge amount of money that is being jeopardized. And if Cristiano Ronaldo, can't play for 6 months because of the bad conditions of the football pitch, this is very bad, and it's the responsibility of those who have constructed the pitch, and it's also the responsibility of the football club that have not maintained the pitch properly. The important thing is that groundsmen must be able to interact and discuss with coaches, physical trainers, because they are the ones how the game is going to be played next Sunday. They may require a very fast pitch, or they want the ball that bounces very much. And these are things that the groundsman can affect. And a gardener who normally works on, let's say, 5 or 6 different pitches, and so does not have a proper knowledge of that pitch, well, that person is not as good as the groundsman, because the groundsman is specialized in that football pitch, and this person knows every single grass blade, and so this person can make changes according to the wishes of the physical trainers and the coaches. So the football pitch can be modified just for 1 week, just for 3 days, depending on what we are going to do, of course, of what the groundsman is going to do. And the same applies also to little children playing grounds, and with just a little bit, we can maintain these children playing grounds without holes that are so dangerous for them. Or in some cases, we can see that there is no grass. They play on the bare soil. Of course, this is not acceptable, and I think that we all want our children to play in full safety. So this is why groundspersons will be very useful. These groundspersons will work on that football or children, sorry, playing ground once a week, for example, and introduce all the modifications and changes that are required. Of course, if one works with the Premier League, that's another thing, and in that case, the person would work on a single football pitch because this is obvious. The money coming from working with a Premier League club is enough. But of course, if the ground person works with the children playing grounds, he will have to take care of more than one city for income reasons. And maybe the same applies if they work for second or third division football clubs. We have to keep in mind, however, that it's important that whatever is done in a timely fashion. When we are, and based on where we are. In northern Italy, conditions are different from southern Italy. Irrigation is different in the north and in the south. And the type of the knowledge is different, and the tools are different. So there are many differences based on weather, on geography, and this applies not only, of course, to sports grounds, but also to gardens, because as we said, grounds persons might also be working for other purposes. Of course, there are several techniques that must be very well known if you work for sports ground. Special drainage techniques, for example. In that case, you will have to have all the knowledge required. Of course, this irrigation must be required much more frequently in a sports Premier League pitch than in a normal garden. And whereas there may be other things that are as frequent in sports grounds as in home gardens. And then the seeds and the seeding operations, of course, and the seeding operations are performed weekly in a Premier League, whereas in a home garden, this is once a year, for example. So it's the same thing, but it's much more frequent in sports ground and than in home gardens. And the same applies to fertilization. Of course, fertilization is much more frequent in sports grounds. And here we could go into details because the techniques and the things that are used for fertilizing are very complex. Some people might prefer nitrogen or enzymes or bacteria or natural problems or microelements. And and this type of different forms of fertilization are important both in sports and in gardens. I don't very much like my workers to apply nitrogen based fertilizers. I don't like them. They are, as it were, healthy carriers of fungi. And that is something people do not know, but the nitrogen-based fertilizers can be very dangerous, in my opinion. And one has to remember that the 12th man of the team is not, as sometimes it is said here in Italy, the audience, the supporters. No, it's the pitch, it's the actual, the quality of the football pitch. This is the 12th man, and this can give you a competitive edge, as it were. So if you play um, in appropriate soil with appropriate soil and lawn and turf conditions, well, you are more likely to win. I won't say that you start 1-0, but you start half 0.5-0, which means that you have an advantage. And the groundsmen, together with physical trainers and coaches, can contribute to this advantage for teams. In our courses, training courses, uh, there are different steps, of course. There are different levels. Basic level where you just give the foundations. There is the second level where a second level course um, allows you to work actually, but then you can become a groundsman and manager, so you can take care and be the actual manager of the Premier League, let's say, football pitch. So we organize different courses at different levels. But what should a groundsman do in the green part of the field? Well, the groundsman must create an environment that is healthy and where safe, where nobody gets hurt, nobody gets infected because it was and I think you do have this experience, or you read about that sometimes some fertilization methods are suggested, but but they can be dangerous from the point of view of infections, and infections might lead players to stop playing for a few weeks, and this is money, wasted money for the club, because the player that has been paid cannot play properly. So we have to be very careful about what we read in the web, because the internet actually has everything. You can find everything in the internet, things that are posted by university professors, gardeners, but also lay people or people who have never done anything in the field, just read a couple of texts, for example, or there may be people who simply because they read American textbooks and they think they know everything, but actually, literally, the weather and climate and the soil conditions are completely different from those in the United States. So you have to be very careful. And, uh, of course, only some parts of the United States experience can be transferred to Italy. We are a fairly long and narrow country, so we have remarkable differences from north to center to south. And so you have to be aware of that and adopt the required strategy. So we have to be really, really very careful, and we have to follow the recommendations of experts. If we need to test something to make tests, let's test something on a small piece of land in a garden, for example. And this is what I tell my students. You've got also training fields, because for example, a Premier League club has the main football pitch, and then there are other training grounds. Do some experiments there. Start there. Don't start with the main playing pitch. And this applies at all levels, because this is a way to know whether things work in that area with those soil conditions, with that weather. So testing first, without testing in small surfaces in the garden. And this is what I have seen with many colleagues also coming from other countries. And I personally don't just talk about theory, I also talk about practice. Actually, I do practice. I do test things personally. I am used to, to always looking for the reason why something is done. I am not happy with say, well, this has always been done like this. No, this is not correct. This is not the right attitude. You have to look for why, the reason. You have to question. You have to ask why. Why should I do this? And test, test, test. Why has that other my colleague? Why has my colleague done this? And experimenting, testing is fundamental. As I said, I do experiments, and if things do not work properly, I take suggestions, recommendations, and adapt them to the conditions where I work. Of course, this applies to gardeners as well, and home gardeners or park managers. They too have to follow this approach and always ask why things should be done. Why? It is also important for us to spread this culture all over Italy. In particular, we want to involve all sports clubs, both professionals and amateurs. We want this culture to be spread. We want groundsmen to be employed by all uh, sports clubs. We would like to thank the AIMA Green Academy, who trusted us based on our experience, based on what we've been able to do. And we recently had the sponsorship uh, of a ministry, and we always cooperate with uh, certified and recognized institutions at a national and international level. So our certificate has an international value. The first 4 students that were trained in our courses, actually there were 4 of them, and they found a job overnight almost. And but they did so in Spain because at the beginning, then in Italy, nobody looked for brown person. So we are very happy to cooperate and with a Maghreb Academy with this type of collaboration will certainly be very fruitful, and we hope that is long lasting and we have an expanded type of collaboration, because this would make the figure of groundspersons better known. Groundsmen would be better known, and a Green Academy would grow, we would grow, and so this cooperation would be mutually beneficial. In my opinion, this is a type of cooperation that should go on, not just to stop or just uh, concern interviews or um, something very superficial. No, we must work and collaborate so that we can have a really a close connection, and we can together promote the figure of trans persons. In Italy, there are more than 24,000 natural grass um, playing grass, 24,000. And then there are the synthetic ones. And we'd also have groundsmen for synthetic grass, but that's another thing. So we need at least 8,000 groundsmen, let's say, not one, 8,000 for the 24,000 grass playing in Italy. We have to make people understand that this professional profile is important. We want people to look for grants. We want clubs, sports association to be aware of the importance of finding a good groundsman. If you visit the EOG, which is a British association, and this is actually someone, an entity we collaborate with, and you will find So the names of sports clubs and associations that are looking for groundsmen, because this is something that in Britain is fairly common. They look for, they know that this is an important thing. The tools that are required are not very particular, and you can also rent them, the tools and machinery or the equipment, let's say. You need a drill, which is a machine that makes holes, and then you need also a vertidrain, and which gets to a 30 centimeter depth. In many professional fields, we know that they've got also heating systems and water pipes at 20 centimeters. So you have to be very careful when you use this vertigrade. For the vertigrade, I always recommend to have these vertigrade machines that reach maximum 30 centimeters to cut the ground, the actual soil, because the more, the softer and the ground the soil is, the better it is, because there's more air. These are the two machines. Then one needs a helicoidal type of cutting machine, but this is more expensive. Most people use the rotary cutting machines. The ideal thing would be to have a helicoidal one, but the rotary one is okay as well. Of course, you have to take care of the blades. The blades must be cutting properly, and this leads to fewer infection possibilities. If infections of, I mean, meaning bacteria or fungi infecting the grass, which can be dangerous for players and for the grass itself. So I think that a sharp, the blades must be sharp so that the cutting is sharp. And another thing which I forgot actually, and this is something that I did recommend in Spain. Before entering the playing field, so let's use of uh, uh, of a sort of rug with a disinfectant. And why? Because in this way, the shoe and the heel and the heel can be disinfected. So this means that players that got shoes infected in their own pitches do not take their bacteria, their infective agents to my own pitch. This is something a common practice in Australia. So the shoes of players should be disinfected. This is why we place this mat, as it were, which is soaked in a disinfectant, and all players have to walk on this mat in order to disinfect their shoes and to avoid infecting my own grass, as it were. So these are just the small tips that trainers, physical trainers and coaches do not know, but the groundsman knows, and they know all the pros and cons, the flaws, the strong points, and a good groundsman also knows the strong and weak points of the opponents, and also what the danger of contamination is caused by the shoes of the opponent. So it would be a pity really to work such a hard work because of the infected shoes. Now, another thing that not very many know is that you don't need large machines, large equipment. But because I mean, of course, it depends on the size, but and for example, there may be a machine that helps me understand whether the ball slides properly, or there can be a shoe with which which is made out of steel, and it can be used. This is a machine that can be used to test the soil condition. This obviously is important for the needs of the players. And you know that um, very often, at least in Italy, the grass is being considered as responsible for not allowing the shoes to move properly, causing dislocation of the knees of some ligaments. And this is true. This is not what I say, but um, also trainers and then with reference to the actual bouncing of the ball. So this is another test we do. Then you have also machines to help you understand the hardness of the soil from 65 to 85. It can get to in some championships one can get to 100, but it should be from 65 to 85. Now we have drones as well that are being used, and they are working. They are very fashionable now. They seem to be working, but let's wait for it because they have to be improved. But drones will be useful probably in the future to simplify the the whole job. Actually, life of the groundsman would be easier, but humans are humans, and humans cannot just rely on technology. It's the humans that understand the groundsman without using a steel shoe um, for cleats, or without using a machine. I think that a good groundsman can feel whether that soil is too hard or too soft. I think that there is also human perception dimension. Yes, all the tools I've mentioned, they are very useful and they are recommended by FIFA, by UEFA, but I think that it's the person that must walk on the pitch and have a feel of what is happening on that soil. I think that human knowledge, human perception is much better because with all the instruments, all the tools, all the data, but then you don't have a proper knowledge, uh, that would be enough. That would not be enough because I think that a very good groundsman, let's say English groundsmen, they are really very good. They are certainly better than all of these equipment put together. We humans have built these machines. We humans can read them and we know how these machines work. So these machines and tools are useful, but human experience and expertise is absolutely essential, crucial, and cannot be set aside, cannot be replaced by technology. So groundsmen must know, understand, and improve sports ground. And whatever is horizontal green. So not necessarily a sports ground or a park. Of course, the approach would be different in different circumstances. Grounds persons must also be able to provide some savings for the company because if the company has hired a groundsman, probably this would be much cheaper than contracting out pitch management to uh, third parties that do not have a proper knowledge of the pitch. I think that there must be a person who has a very good knowledge of the pitch, the case of Premier League or First Division um, clubs. I think that this is absolutely essential. Having said that, that's enough for me. I say bye, and that's it. floor to my colleague. Good morning, my name is Gianni Casini. I work in Nice, in France, as a groundsman. 4 years. I have been working there for 4 years, and I work for the maintenance of the training center and of the main football pitch. Daily, I work, of course, daily with 7 or 8 people who work fields. I decide the plan in terms of seeding, fertilization, daily maintenance. I have to work out proper plans for the training center and for the pitch, for the central maintenance. And also I work for the management, this is very important, not to be understated, of the interaction with the people that are essential. So consultants, suppliers, fertilizer, stadium managers, uh, trainers. So I interact with all these people, and this interaction is very important. You have to devote very much importance to this as well. A reference to my background. I was trained in Italy. I have a secondary school diploma as a technician. I got a degree at the University of Pisa on the management of green areas. Then also I attended a master course on olive tree management, and in 2013 actually I got a certificate golf course superintendent. That's the National Golf School. And as far as my professional career, I mean, I started when I was already studying in the year 2000, more or less. I started working on the maintenance of private home gardens. Then during my university, I was lucky because I was able to attend the course on turfs and lawns. And I remember that day very clearly, that experience very clearly. We spent one day in golf course, and when I was there for the first time, I understood that that was my passion. That was the thing. I, so I really thought that being able to take care of the grass, of the lawns, what I wanted to do. I started in 2004 working in London for the first time, and actually I got a great job, and I worked at the Richmond Public Golf Course. It's a 36-hole golf course. Then I came back to Italy. After a couple of years, I worked in a farm where we produced extra virgin olive oil, quality olive oil. And this 2-year period, I, I went back to professional sport. I stayed 2 years in England in one of the most famous golf courses in England, from London. So in the last 14 years, I was working in sports grounds. I was lucky to work in Italy on the construction of a 27-hole as an assistant project manager. So I was the assistant project manager, sorry, and I had to interact with all the workers who had to practically create this course, and after this golf period, which lasted a few years after, I also was the assistant Then I moved to Germany. There was an interesting project there, and I got there by the company. So I worked with construction six um, tennis courts, lawn tennis, and I worked with people working in Wimbledon. Actually, I did go to Wimbledon once every month for a couple of days to learn how a tennis court could be managed um, properly, because in this German tennis courts, international tournaments were played. And then from there, I moved to France to Nice. Uh, uh, yes, I was lucky because I provide some consultancy for the municipality of this, with reference to public homes, parks. And last year, I also worked as a consultant for the World Football FIFA for the female um, soccer World Cup. So this is my, my resume, as it were. So my working experience. More can I tell you? What I do to make a comparison between Italy and other countries, since my activity has developed abroad frequently, and I can say that abroad in other countries, young people who want to follow this career, there are many opportunities, because in other countries, young people are more opportunities, even if they don't have perhaps much experience. In Italy, this is not so frequent. I mean, young people are not so easily trusted, as it were. So I think that, but this applies almost to everything, not just on green and grounds management. And I think that the abroad, the opportunities abroad are better. I think that there is a better recognition of skills and competencies. Unfortunately, in Italy, we are in a moment, in a situation where there is no real ground, for many reasons. Well, we have to be very careful here. The benchmark is where the professional groundsman was started, but they've got a tradition, training centers, a famous school, and so they've got a completely different frame of mind. But this applies now also to other countries, not just to England, even though I must say that in other countries, other than England, uh, they do have groundsmen, but they are not so common as in England. So Italy is lagging behind. There are some foreign countries that are lagging behind, but not as much as Italy. In Italy, very few clubs have their own groundsmen. And I could also add that famous associate clubs should have in some cases there are other clubs that take part in European cups and tournaments. And to be very more competitive, they should have their own groundsman, because a groundsman directly employed by the club makes it possible for the coach, for the trainer, for the club to adapt soil conditions to the field. Of course, this depends also on the inherent structure of the pitch, of course, but there could be a better adaptation, as it were, of the soil and the turf condition to the requests of trainers and uh, coaches, and also to prevent sports accidents, which are in some cases caused by the mm, the ground. Um, so there are several reasons why groundsmen are important for health, or to prevent accidents, but also to have a playing field that is more, let's say, in line with the features, with the qualities of the home players, as it were. Of course, there are parameters that must be complied with. There are UEFA and FIFA parameters, and you can keep within those. But within those parameters, there is a range, there is some scope. Once this is understood, I think that the Italian clubs will hurry up and look for well qualified groundsmen. I think this is a necessary step forward. In working abroad, I talked with coaches and physical trainers, and I talked to people, to these people. They told me we are working with groundsmen. Groundsmen should work in close contact with because groundsmen could uh, help a team be more competitive and maybe win one additional point that in the final ranking allows that team to get to the uh, Champions League, for example. I think that this is not completely understood in Italy, and once this is understood, I think that the approach will change about the need for a certified groundsman. And a groundsman, some accompanies the players during summer when they've got their training summer session. And in these weeks, maybe the groundsman can organize things so that there is this fatigue because of the soil conditions, because of the changes that the groundsman can bring to the turf, to the playing field. So the groundsman is useful in these circumstances as well. And, or maybe when there is a match played abroad, not at home, the groundsman can carry out a brief assessment of the ground's condition and inform the coach and the physical trainer. And maybe this will have an impact on the decisions made by the coach. Oh, and in terms of maintenance, even in Italy, there was a huge change in the last few years, 10 to 15 years ago, really. Things have changed, and now light, LED lights or ultraviolet lights are used that extend the light period of photoperiod of the plant. So the plant is heated, as it were. The plants believe they are in spring and summer, and so they grow more. This is another important point. I mean, this is just a small point, but whether we talk about consequences now, we can use probes like this one that help us understand this salt uh, content so that we can better plan fertilization or relative humidity of the turf can be measured by special probes. These probes can tell us we need to irrigate in 1 or 2 days, or there may be probes that tell us that the light intensity is such and such, and this helps us understand whether we should give additional lighting or not, or equipment, we've got probes, we've got machines that can help us. I have been working with completely electric machines, which are very useful, and we have less vibrations, so they are more user-friendly. We can use also during, for example, during training in the field next to the one where the players are training without having to wait for the end because these machines make much less noise. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I've been interesting for you, and I hope that the ground becomes an important uh, profession in Italy. I would like also to come back and work for some professional teams. Who knows? So thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.